Hi, my name is Ashley Hall, and along with my group of James Strong, Judith Ramon, Kelly Russell, and Carrie Jackson, we are presenting our debate over service delivery for transition age youth, empowerment versus care. According to the United States Government Accountability Office, approximately 500,000 youth with autism spectrum disorder alone will enter adulthood over the next 10 years. Individuals with autism spectrum disorder and other significant intellectual and developmental disabilities often require a vast array of services and support to help them successfully make this transition. Public policy has been in effect since 1975 to ensure this availability of services that promote education, employment, and independent living for this population, according to the U.S. Department of Education. However, Osmond, Chan, and Solomon note that research on how to effectively deliver support to adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities is scant. Furthermore, little research exists to establish whether the empowerment perspective or care perspective is a more effective service delivery model to promote success amongst transition age youth and adults. The empowerment model focuses on the use of an individual's capabilities, capacities, and available opportunities to achieve goals. On the other hand, the care model addresses needs from an impairment or disability standpoint. Both models can represent particular ethical dilemmas for BCBAs, as the core ethical principles and professional and ethical compliance codes mandate that professionals in the field do no harm, respect autonomy, accord dignity, and treat others with care and compassion. Based on these guidelines, BCBAs are also responsible for promoting an improved quality of life, independence, self-sufficiency, and providing the most effective behavior change practices in the least restrictive manners. Using these principles along with current empirical research, our group will argue whether an empowerment approach or care approach provides the most effective service delivery model in regards to employment, living arrangements, and interpersonal relationships for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So first off, we're gonna watch a video. So trying to cope with a severely autistic individual. So there's oftentimes there are concerning cases of abuse and neglect, and a large amount have been abused by someone they consider a friend.
This is where he's put his head through the wall, and this is where he stood and kicked it. Ow, 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 He's 6'2" and he weighs 252 pounds. He can go through this house and just wipe everything out probably in 10 minutes. You know, I've had him turn furniture over. Well, you see all the windows and stuff. You know, the air conditioner back in the bedroom, he'll sit and punch that till it's in pieces. You know, in other words, if it breaks anymore, it's kind of like it's material. It can be replaced. I don't even let it bother me. But the destruction is just unbelievable. What are you so mad about? What are you so mad about?
The Miser brothers.
Calm down. Look, you got Santa Claus is coming to town.
Of all the fool things for them to do.
You got Santa Claus is coming to town. Don't do that. Owie. Owie. Ow. Owie. He's part of the family, and you hate to give up on your child as a lost cause. But I've come to the conclusion now that the best thing would be to place him somewhere where they can control him. They're not going to hurt him. I'm afraid, though, if I do leave him at home, it'll be like that man that they took to one of those homes or centers last weekend that got out of control and they tased him and he died of a heart attack. Yeah, you understand what's going through my head, why I'm not opposed to taking him and placing him somewhere, because this can't go on and other people cannot control him like me.
If you ask me, still a serious problem. What's the problem, officer? What's the problem? I'll tell you what the problem is. Driving.
Owie.
What do you call that thing anyway?
You watch your movie?
Excellent. And wearing funny looking. Maybe they look like me.
All right, so next up, we're going to hear from Judith over caring for adults with autism.
According to a survey by the National Autistic Society, 7 in 10 adults with autism require someone to prompt them to wash, dress, or feed themselves. Information and advice is important, but not enough to protect at-risk individuals falling into crisis. There are concerning cases of abuse and neglect. A large amount have been abused by someone they considered a friend. These same cases have led to death when direct supervision is not provided. CARE is defined by IDEA as human services agencies along with education services that work collaboratively with adolescents with intellectual disabilities and their families and/or caregivers. CARE is also defined by the Webster Dictionary as all the things, including treatment plans, that are done to keep people safe, clean, and healthy, as well as advocating for the individual that is incapable to do so for himself. At the same time, while caring for adults with severe mental disabilities, you protect him or her from the negative stigma that comes from having a diagnosis. It is important to keep in mind that empowerment is not suitable for all individuals, even after years of therapy. Severe cases of low-functioning adults have shown that it is better for parents or caregivers to use their judgments about what is best for the individual. CARE model is recommended for those who have a low chance of having a successful transition to adulthood. Being faithful to our core ethical principle, which is do no harm, will commit parents and caregivers to make the appropriate decisions to ensure that the individual with a disability receive the best care and treatment.
All right, next we're going to hear from James over empowering adults with autism within living arrangements. And here, research has found that environments created by individuals with autism increases the potential to allow that person to reach their maximal potential.
Research has found that environments created by the individual with autism increases the potential to allow that person to reach their maximum potential. And this is because they know what reduces triggers and best self-soothing practices. Empowering individuals with autism to live more independently has never been so bright as it is today due to technological advancements. Many companies like Simply Home focuses on enriching the lives of individuals with a variety of disabilities by providing products that support independence. So more specifically, Simply Home has developed products that can remind an individual with autism of certain activities that need to be completed as part of their daily routine. And this is important because individuals typically work better throughout the day when they're on a consistent routine. Other services include programs that allow an individual with autism to operate their lights, their doors, and their thermostat from the use of their tablet or iPad. The fact that businesses are focusing their efforts on autistic communities is only reiterating the advancements that we are making as a community and a society, and meeting the daily needs of those who have the desire to live independently with autism. Additionally, many advancements have been made regarding living arrangements for individuals with autism. For example, co-ops, group homes, and supervised living options are more readily available to help the individual with autism take steps towards full independence. These facilities are typically set up in a manner that allows the individual with autism to have some supervision and assistance when needed in carrying out their daily tasks. And finally, research has also shown the type of individual who best meets the needs of an autistic individual living in these types of facilities will have that holistic, people-centered approach. And today has never been a better time for individuals with autism to be more empowered with their living arrangements.
All right, next we're going to talk about care within relationships. It has been found that individuals with severe mental disorders have a difficult time comprehending and understanding the risk and potential dangers they could be in when they engage in intimate relationships with others. There are three main areas that have been found to be the main risk for this population of individuals when it comes to being in relationships. The first area is that a lack of knowledge and education has led to a higher risk of individuals with mental illnesses contracting an STI or STD, with some of the main diseases that these individuals have contracted being HIV and syphilis. Second, a lack of knowledge has led to risk of sexual abuse for those with intellectual disabilities. 1 in 6 boys and 1 in 4 girls with intellectual disabilities are victims of sexual abuse before the age of 18. And that was found with the Autism and Safety Facts. And also, lastly, a lack of proper education has led to sexual exploitation of those with mental illnesses. Due to the vast amount of risks that are out there for those with intellectual disabilities, I believe that it is in the best interest of the individuals to not engage in intimate activities with others. Also, due to their lack of comprehension of the severity of the consequences for the actions they are engaging in, they are putting themselves in grave risk with consequences that could even potentially lead to a fatal ending. Possibly with the proper education and resources being made available, those who are more cognitively aware could possibly engage in a healthy sexual life without the risk of serious consequences. According to the BACB Codes of Compliance, Code 2.09a, clients have the right to effective treatment, and 2.03a, arranging referrals to the appropriate professional. These codes make it to where it would be our responsibility to make sure that our clients receive the respective and effective treatment that would help them succeed to their fullest potential. Next, we're going to hear from Carrie over empowerment with relationships, but first we're going to watch a short video.
You can stop the video. Okay. I do understand that some individuals' degree of impairment would make it necessary to monitor or even limit personal interactions, especially those that involve sexual activity. However, in line with the behavior analysis core ethical principle of respecting autonomy and ethical compliance code 4.09, least restrictive environment, it is my opinion that individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities have the same biological need we all have for interpersonal relationships, and therefore should have the right to have relationships that may involve expressing their sexuality. The care model, unfortunately, does not always support autonomy or put the least restrictive methods at the forefront of service delivery for individuals choosing to have interpersonal relationships. As suggested in research carried out by Borman and Rathborn, the empowerment model is more suitable because it uses a proactive rather than reactive approach to education and disabilities, which has been found to decrease the risk of sexual exploitation, abuse, disease, or inappropriate behavior. Later research conducted by Bates, Terry, and Popple support these findings, noting that avoiding the use of a protective or risk-aversion stance, such as the one typically used in the CARE model, is essential to promoting empowerment in individuals with disabilities. So what's the best way to educate and empower transition-age youth and adults concerning relationships and sexuality? Borman and Rathborn suggest using social stories, a scientifically supported method that allows service providers to teach individuals with disabilities about all aspects of relationships. Through services that provide information and training, individuals with disabilities can overcome many of the barriers that prohibit them from engaging in interpersonal relationships.
All right, next up, we're going to hear about the empowerment with employment from Kelly.
Through research, it has been found that employment opportunities for transition youth with autism usually result from 4 different variables. These variables include self-determination, social skills, job search, and transportation. Of these 4 key areas, transportation was the area that consistently presented the most challenges, while other areas, such as social skills, could be more easily taught through empowerment. The 2 most common ways to help teach these social skills for an interview process is the use of video modeling and social stories. In regards to transportation, this was considered the biggest challenge because children with autism are less likely to obtain a driver's license than typically developing peers and are also less likely to have other means of transportation. The biggest social challenge transition youth face with employment is the job search itself. This is due to how much change has occurred and how to search for jobs. Often employment opportunities are found through networking these days, and the fact of the matter is these transition youth with autism do not typically have enough peers who are also in the job market to assist in a networking process. Another struggle is using the internet for job searching, as it is often challenging to find jobs online that transition youth with autism would qualify for. This is because more often than not, employers are requiring more experience and higher education degrees, as master's degrees are more common now than they were decades ago. Overall, though, transition youth can be taught to advocate for themselves through an employment search, and family members and close friends can also be taught how to empower and encourage these youth to seek employment. These, however, prevent transition youth with autism from searching and finding gainful employment. These barriers can be broken down, and as BCBAs, it is our job to help and empower these youth to succeed. If as BCBAs we were to not empower these transition age youth to seek employment, provided the individual expresses interest in employment, then we would be breaking 2 major compliance codes. This includes 2.03 consultation, because as BCBAs we should be consulting with schools to help teach and empower these youth to seek employment. It would also break 2.09 treatment intervention and efficacy, because as BCBAs we should also recognize the need to teach transition youth with autism to advocate for themselves and guide them towards the most effective treatment. And I'm going to turn it back to you, Ashley.
All right, next up, we're going to hear from Carrie over care with employment.
Okay. Individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities benefit more from a care-based approach than an empowerment approach, because for many of them, care-based service delivery is the only available option. The bottom line is underemployment and unemployment continue to be a persistent issue for this population, no matter what strategies are used to address barriers. According to the ARC, a national organization that advocates for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, finding gainful employment is difficult despite their abilities, desire, or willingness to work. Statistics provided by Cornell University reveal that approximately 75% of individuals with cognitive disabilities between the ages of 16 and 64 in the US were unemployed in 2016. A study conducted by Nord and his colleagues found that those that are employed tend to work less than 20 hours per week, just enough to put them at risk of losing Social Security or welfare benefits and living in poverty. However, a more pressing issue is that employers just don't find disabled workers to be beneficial to their bottom line because the support needed is just too large of a burden. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, individuals with disabilities have more difficulties with work tasks and make more requests for accommodations related to tasks, job structure, schedules, or equipment than their typically developing coworkers. The 27,000 complaints filed in 2007 with the EEOC under the American with Disabilities Act might also discourage employers from hiring individuals with disabilities. So in line with the behavior analysis core ethical principle of do no harm and ethical compliance code 2.09 relating to the right to effective treatment, it is important for service deliverers to understand how lack of employment, difficulties finding employment, and underemployment pose the risk for inflicting severe psychological and physical stress, and how these risks may potentially outweigh the benefits of employment. For these reasons, a care-based approach may not only be a treatment option used out of necessity, but also a more effective one than empowerment.
In conclusion, we found that a lack of knowledge and potential for sexual exploitation or harm are major barriers to advocating for interpersonal relationships. However, education and self-advocacy can be used to break down these barriers. Because individuals with disabilities require great amounts of supports with daily living activities, it is difficult to promote independent living. However, research shows individuals with autism flourish when we give them opportunities to create their own environment. Although finding and maintaining employment can be difficult, with proper supports and services, employment provides benefits such as self-sufficiency, self-determination, and increased social interaction. As a group, we believe that it is in the best interest of individuals transitioning into adulthood with autism to advocate for themselves through an empowerment stance. As BCBAs, it is our job to make sure we are empowering and improving the lives of these individuals by using available services and supports to increase awareness, educate, and promote independence. The core ethical principles and compliance codes should be used as a guideline to direct service provisions. Next up, we will be having some questions from the audience.
Our first question is, what are your thoughts on teaching individuals with severe intellectual disorders about relationships and dating? What aspects of relationships would you teach? How would you teach them? And would you include such topics as teaching them how to be intimate with another individual?
I think to answer that, I know that Carrie had actually really stressed this when she was speaking on the discussion of social stories. I think that is definitely a strong point. But then I think it's also important to look at each individual on a case-by-case basis regarding like their functioning level. You're not going to talk about 14-year-old issues, regarding dating and relationships with a 6 or a 7-year-old. So that goes back to emphasis on age-appropriate conversations, boundaries and redirection. Personally, would I discuss intimacy and things like that to a child with ASD? I think, again, it goes back to the functioning level. And I think that there's a big difference. I think when a lot of people think of intimacy, they also think of sex, and that is two totally different things. With intimacy, there's communication, levels of communication. There's your needs and wants that are needing to be met. So that is definitely things that need to be emphasized when you are discussing relationships and dating.
Yes, I agree with James on that, especially with the intimacy part. I know in my own professional life when with it, I have a client he's a 19-year-old male who has recently been intrigued in dating himself. And the young lady that he is interested in dating is actually only 15 years old. And he doesn't understand the significance of he's 19 and she's 15. And so this has been something that has been, you know, a struggle for him because he does not comprehend, you know, what the social, you know, stigmas that could be placed upon him for dating a minor and him being an adult. And, you know, and it's been, his mother has had to have lots of, you know, discussions with him on, you know, what things are appropriate and what things are not. And, you know, it's been a very hard learning process for him to know what things, you know, we can do, what things we cannot do. So I think, you know, it really goes to show, you know, some clients are going to be able to understand more than others. And because, you know, what he thinks would be more of being intimate and like physically intimate with someone is holding their hand. You know, that's as physically intimate as he would get with someone. And so, you know, I think that would be something that we would really have to think about before, you know, considering what we do discuss with a client.
Our second question is, of the 4 factors that contribute to employment barriers for transition age youth, which one do you feel is the biggest barrier and why? Which of these barriers stood out to you the most?
Kelly, you spoke of 4 major barriers to employment for transition age youth. For me, I think the greatest barrier and the one that stood out for me the most is the job search. You spoke of difficulties related to searching the internet and networking, and those are certainly barriers. But I think simply finding an employer that's willing to take a chance on them is difficult. Oftentimes, individuals with disabilities require modifications to equipment or specialized training and supervision to do their job. For an employer, these accommodations can be costly. And let's just face it, employers want the largest return on their investment. The employer has to consider whether an employee with a disability will be worth his time. I think on many occasions, the employer decides to hire someone that doesn't require these special accommodations because it's simply good for the bottom line.
Those are great points, Carrie. I agree with a lot of them. It's definitely hard for the job search and having those networking opportunities that a lot of us rely on. And even just keeping in mind switching that over to someone who has a disability, how much harder that's going to be for them. I did also agree, though, because I read a lot of the research on the 4 factors, that transportation is definitely still one of the probably most challenging ones. Like for me personally, I drive between clients' houses. So like obviously transportation's a huge thing that I have to rely on. And I can't even imagine like someone with a disability, how hard that would be for them, one, to obtain a driver's license and pass a driving test. That probably could cause potentially a lot of anxiety for them to even like go through what it takes to obtain your driver's license, but then also just relying on other means of transportation, because depending on where you live, like if they live in a rural area, transportation options aren't going to be as easily accessible, whereas like where I live in Denver, Colorado, there's buses, there's transit, there's trains, there's so many other options that I could use, but for people with a disability, depending on where they live and what job they're looking for, those means of transportation could definitely be challenging.
Question number 3. What person, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. It just cut out when you were talking. Sorry.
What personal experiences do you have with empowerment versus care in your professional or personal life with individuals with disabilities? I'm going to go ahead and answer that from a care model perspective. So being realistic when we talk about adults with autism, again, it's always important to view this on a case-by-case basis. But if we were to conduct perhaps a milestone assessment, this adult with severe autism might end up in a mental age much lower than his or her chronological age. So personal experience, I can think of my daughters being 6 and 8 and what they're able and not capable of doing by themselves. So again, even if it's an adult 18 plus years with the mental age lower than that, he might not be capable of living on his own if mental age is below adult age. So you know, a child 6 to 8 years is not able to still take care of his own, shower appropriately, take care of hygiene, personal hygiene, cook, clean, stay healthy.
In addition to that, from my personal experience and work so far, I've seen a lot of empowerment to teach children, you know, how, like, we have our own like life skills room, and we'll teach them how to do laundry, how to make a bed. We teach a lot of the transition youth, you know, 15 to 18-year-old clients how to put on deodorant, how to wash their face, how to brush their teeth. And those are all skills that they can potentially, depending on their what level and functioning they're at, can learn to do. But I've also seen a lot of benefits through empowering, and how empowering them to teach them those things, and how beneficial it is for them and their families as well. Just for a parent to know, hey, they can do their laundry on their own. Often that's something that parents find really rewarding to see.
Unfortunately, a lot of adults with autism are not capable of functioning on their own, even after many, many years of therapy. I think this concludes our debate.